Blythe,
Here.
Leisha Novak,
Here.
Jan Schweddy,
Present.
and Yvonne Guiardo Van Ornum is excused.
Mayor Vanney, I move for approval of the agenda.
Second. Question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I'd like to start our meeting off tonight. We have two proclamations. We'll start with the first one, the Arbor Day proclamation. Leisha, would you like to read that one?
Yes. Whereas in 1872, the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day to be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can be a solution to combating climate change by reducing the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind, water, cutting heat, cooling cost, moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, Dawn Vanney, the Mayor of Arlington, hereby proclaim April 9th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the City of Arlington, and urges all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, all citizens are urged to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations.
Thank you. Our next one is Child Abuse Prevention Month. Heather.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas children are our nation's most vulnerable members, as well as our nation's most valuable resource, helping to shape the future of Arlington. And whereas positive childhood experiences like loving caregivers and safe, stable, and nurturing relationships can help mitigate trauma and the negative impact of adverse childhood experiences to promote the social, emotional, and developmental well-being of children. And whereas childhood trauma can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects throughout an individual's lifetime and impact future generations of their family. And whereas childhood trauma, including abuse and neglect, is a serious problem affecting every community in the United States, and finding solutions requires input and action from everyone. And whereas children who live in families with access to concrete economic and social supports are less likely to experience abuse and neglect. And whereas prevention is possible because of the partnerships created between families, prevention advocates, child welfare professionals, education, health, community, and faith-based organizations, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and local, state, and national governments. And whereas we acknowledge that in order to solve the public health issue of abuse and neglect, we must work together to change hearts and mindsets through storytelling and sharing, center the needs of families, break down biases and barriers, and inspire action from expected and unexpected partners in prevention. And whereas we are committed to advancing equitable, responsive, and effective systems that ensure all children and families are healthy and thriving. And whereas we recognize the need to prioritize kids and invest in more prevention initiatives like home visits and family strengthening policies, economic supports, and community-based child abuse prevention programs at the national, state, and local levels. And now, therefore, Dawn Vanney, Mayor of Arlington, does hereby proclaim April as National Child Abuse Prevention Month in Arlington, and urges all citizens to recognize this month by building a narrative of hope for children and families through collaboration and the creation of an ecosystem of primary prevention.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, we'll move on now to, we'll open it up for public comment for members of the public who would wish to speak to the council about any matter not on any public hearing portion, which we don't have on the meeting, but please limit your remarks to 3 minutes and state your name and address. Do we have anybody? Okay, none seen. Then we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Mayor Vanney, I move for approval of the consent agenda as noted.
Second.
Question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. The motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to our first item of new business. Resolution declaring property as surplus. Debbie Stratz.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. This evening, I bring to you a resolution declaring property as surplus for your review and approval. You will see Exhibit A attached to your meeting minutes. It's nice and short this time. We have a few police vehicles that have been, that are up for equipment replacement. A couple of them have been replaced already, and we have a couple of them that are en route that are being upfitted at this time. And of course, we have the sweeper that caught fire has been replaced already. And then when we did our inventory this year, we had just a few things that we needed to remove from our asset management system. So if you have any questions.
Any questions? Alicia?
Yeah, I just was wondering about the police cars. I know that like a couple got hit. Do we have like a surplus extra ones for that time, or what happens at that point? Should we?
So we normally keep a few cars as breakdown cars or training cars on hand for this type of situation. So we prefer our cars not to be hit, but worst case scenario, our admin has cars. So I only live a few miles away, so I was prepared to hand mine off in that case, but fortunately it hasn't come to that yet. And we have bicycles. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Any other? Okay.
Thank you.
None seen? Motion?
I move to approve the resolution declaring the property as surplus and authorize the mayor to sign the resolution.
Second.
Question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our second item, the airport lease waiver. Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'll be talking about the airport lease waiver. Lot 304 is located on airport property north of 531 and the intersection of 43rd Avenue. It's a property just northwest of Weston High School. PGF LLC is the project manager of the lease, and unfortunately, due to significant setbacks, as outlined in the attachment, has requested that airport staff terminate their lease and waive their 2025 payment of $67,937.35, including associated costs. In spring of 2020, the state of Washington awarded the project to PGF LLC to provide the facility on airport leased land. The lease was to accommodate the new Department of Social and Health Services building and create additional employment to the city of Arlington. There has been significant setbacks and revisions to their initial plan, and there are nearly $200,000 in investments, including past lease payments. PGF LLC has stayed current with their lease payments up until the termination of their lease. Do I have any questions?
None seen? Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the waiver of the rental amount of $67,937.35 from PGF LLC and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Monroe. Okay, we'll move on to our third item, resolution designating applicant agent for FEMA grant application. Jim Kelly.
Thank you very much, Mayor Vanny and council members. Chris Wallace and I are designated as authorized agents for FEMA grant applications. The last council resolution was in 2015. Recently, there was a grant program offered by FEMA, the BRIC grant, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities. We spoke with FEMA. They thought our Haller Well North project was an excellent project for this, so we submitted our pre-application. That was reviewed by Washington State Department of Emergency Management. They said, okay, now you go forward and you can submit your sub-application. So 40 pages and 25 attachments later, we completed the sub-application. We spent the past couple weeks working on answers to that. And this is a very important grant. That, as of Friday at 3:26, FEMA declared it not in line with their primary objectives, and they pulled the grant. However, the resolution is very broad and open, and it lists Chris and I as applicant agents for any FEMA grant that's coming up. I spoke with Washington, the Department of Emergency Management. They said this is a very good project. They're going to keep looking for funding for us, even though the BRIC grant has been pulled. They're still going to work in our favor to get funding for that Howland North project, Howland North Wellfield project. As such, I'm recommending that you authorize Chris and I to be the application agents for FEMA grants again for another period.
Any questions? Heather?
Thank you, Don. So, Jim, the last resolution we made like this was 10 years ago.
Yes.
Do they have expiration dates?
There was none on there was no term on that. However, when we were submitting it and we were working on this grant, it was strongly suggested that we update the grant and make it more current.
Because it
I'm
was-
sorry, update the resolution and make it more current.
Because it was 10 years old?
Yes.
Okay. And so this is not a blank check, it's a blanket authorization to apply for FEMA grants?
It gives Chris and I the right to sign grant applications,
Okay, great, thank you.
not enter into any type of grant agreements. That goes to the mayor.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Deborah?
The motion. I'm just kind of assuming I'm reviewing this, but we don't need to change any of the wording, do we, since it's not specifically for this one?
It's very generic and very open.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
I was going to have a quick question on that as well, Jim, because the resolution calls out for the BRIC program in the first,
The resolution says, I move to approve the resolution.
the next paragraph underneath that,
On the first
state
page
of-
of the resolution,
for the state of,
it says, for the state of Washington, building resilient infrastructure and communities BRIC program. Do we need to strike that?
I would.
Or, well, our attorney's here, or could I just
Can we
make a
just,
motion?
can we
that
make
they
a
be the
motion
applicant?
subject to approval by the city attorney, and then we can make some changes to this to broaden the scope?
Okay,
Okay, great.
I will do that.
thank you.
Okay, so I move to approve the resolution and authorize the mayor to sign it, subject to approval by our city attorney.
Second?
Question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask if there's any comments or reports from the council members. Oh, Deborah?
I just wanted to give a shout out to the IT team. I read the report of what they did, the emergency management, and I was just wholly impressed and thought Brian could have told us a lot more detail about that, and I would have been really interested. You know, I know we're short on time and stuff, but I just want them to know that, and all of the managers and people who participated in that. I really appreciate that, because I know it's a real threat that we have in our world, and also just knowing that how we live through OSO. Just being prepared for anything unknown is excellent, so. But I'm just so proud of our IT department and the growth in it and the excellence, so thank you to them.
I will pass that along to him.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Any other comments? Okay, none seen. Paul, do you have anything for today?
Nothing else this evening.
Okay. I'll just touch a little bit on that, Deborah, the IT report. One thing we're following up with, too, with the directors and stuff, I think it's this next Friday, Paul, or is it this Friday, with the Department of Emergency Management, where we're putting together some plans with Sean.
It's this Friday.
This Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there'll be a Q&A session with DEM there and trying to figure out to put a plan together for the city of Arlington.
Excellent.
So,
That's good.
so I'm looking forward to that. That's the only thing I have tonight. Nobody else has anything else, then I think we're,
Motion to adjourn?
Second question?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.